everybody, it's Haley. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming my May reading wrap up and I'm really excited to get back into filming. May was a tricky month for me, truthfully. I almost didn't film this video because I know it's kind of late, but I was sick like 2.5 times, really 3 times in May. I had a virus that would not go away, that then as I was kind of getting better, got another one. It was just a mess. So I really didn't film anything in May. I did still read, but I did not film much in May. And I am excited to be back. I'm excited to film videos, and I'm a teacher, so now it is summer break and I'm more available to film videos. So I think we'll just move on ahead, starting with this wrap up. And I'm really excited to share the books I read in May. There was kind of a theme to May. I was looking for books for an upcoming video, and it has to do with fantasy books in particular. And I don't want to give too much away, but there was a subscriber comment where someone was requesting fantasy books with like a happily ever after ending and not super emotional, like not gonna make you cry, at least not sad cry. And so I was like, okay. So some of the books this month are me trying to find some more books to add to that recommendations video, and you'll have to see which ones made the cut because a lot of these are not going to be in that video as well. So I'm still doing the wrap up video, even though you may see a couple of these books pop up in an upcoming video for that, with plenty of other books not in this video. There's still about half of my list that won't be in there. So I still think it would be worthwhile to watch the Happily Ever After video. That will be probably the next thing coming up on this channel. So just a little plug, if you want to subscribe, you'll see that coming soon. Next video up on this channel most likely. So let's dive in. Don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's talk about the books I read in May. And we're going to start with A Taste of Poison by Tishanya Odette. And I was so excited to read this book. I've been hearing really good things about this series. This is a interconnected standalone series called Entangled with Fae. And basically every book in this series is a retelling, like a fantasy retelling of a fairy tale. And so this one, you could probably tell by looking at the cover, it is a Snow White retelling. And it's very interesting because all of these books, while they are still like fantasies, it is not contemporary at all. I know a lot of people have been doing like contemporary retellings or spin-offs. This is still a true fantasy, but it's kind of like Snow White ideas taken and then put into like a fae romantasy, and I ate it up. It was so good. I really am excited to read the rest of these. This is actually book 4, and again, they're interconnected standalones. There is no real reading order. There is of course a publication order, and I mean, you could probably read them one through the end, and that would be probably best. But I jumped into this one because first of all, the storyline just appealed to me a lot. I've never read like a Snow White retelling before, and also I saw this one the most recommended online. And so again, just wanting to dive in and get a true good taste of this series, I did it with this one, and it was a really good book. I would rate this kind of like a 4-star, just like a true flat even 4-star. Definitely not in the 3s because I really truly did enjoy it, but not really higher than that, just because there were a couple parts in this book that were a little, I don't want to say slow, because I think they served a purpose for like setting us up for background and all that, but just some slower parts. And I don't really know how I would solve those parts. I don't really think there's anything in here where you're like, just cut that whole thing out. But there were just a couple of pieces where it slowed a little. And so it didn't quite give me like that 4.55-star feeling, but I definitely enjoyed this. A true 4-star. Like, it's not perfection, but it is really good. And so highly, highly recommend. Basically, there is a girl who is your like Snow White FMC. Her name is actually Astrid Snow. So there's the snow piece. And she has this power to be able to kind of like influence people's emotions with her emotions and perceptions of them. So like the traits that you feel in yourself, you project onto her. And so everybody sees her through this warped sense of how they see themselves. And so she basically gets into this whole mess where her father dies, and then her stepmother is kind of blaming her for it, and you kind of see the Snow White pieces in it. But then there is this huntsman who basically he is like this shifter, and he is after her because they believe she killed her father. And so of course Torrin, the MMC, the male main character in this one, comes after her to kill her, but of course he cannot. And so you kind of get this storyline of him fighting kind of his morals and beliefs while trying to deal with her, and her trying to figure out what's going on and who really did kill her father. It's a great book. Highly recommend. So yeah, very excited about that one. Next up, we're veering off of the fantasy just a smidge. I don't really know where this falls, and I really don't know how books in this genre fall, but it's Neon Gods by Katie Robert, which is a book that I have put off reading for so long for absolutely zero reasons. Like, this book is recommended, this whole Dark Olympus series is recommended so much online, and I have always wanted to read it, but I think I just haven't, like, for whatever reason. And I love a Hades and Persephone retelling. It's one that I can read those endlessly. I've read many, and I will continue to read more. Like, the Hades and Persephone storyline, just, it speaks to me. And it did in this book. Like, this is a solid, I would say, like 4.25, even 4.5 stars. Like, I really enjoyed this book. It is a contemporary retelling, and that's where I say, like, we veer off of like fantasy, even though there technically are like gods and goddesses. I don't know what you would classify this as. Paranormal doesn't feel right. I guess it's a fantasy, but like a contemporary fantasy, I don't really know, but it was really good. And basically you have this Olympus society, right? It's the Dark Olympus series, but it's like in this contemporary world where there is like this Olympus, right? Is the real city? Yeah, Olympus. And then you have like the lower world, right? Which is representing like the underworld, and that's Hades' realm, and nobody goes there, and they actually think he's dead in the beginning, but then you find out, obviously, you can probably tell since it's a Hades Persephone retelling, that he is not dead. But our lovely Persephone has to escape her awful engagement with Zeus, who she does not want to marry. And so she escapes to Hades' kind of neck of the woods so that he can protect her and help her and protect her. He does. And so, yeah, without giving too much away, really interesting way to make this a contemporary story. And then, of course, all of the books in the series are interconnected standalones, and they do feature all of the different gods and goddesses and their little love stories and even triangles, I believe. So I'm really excited to read more into this. I like that they're interconnected standalones, kind of like this book, just because I don't feel the pressure to read them like a series, right? It's not like I have to read this one, jump to the next one, jump to the next one, and I want to read them kind of soon because I don't want to forget pieces. It's kind of one that you could just pick up as a palate cleanser when you want to, and you don't have to stress about finishing it in a timely fashion. So I really enjoyed this one. Next up is a book that I was really not expecting to like as much as I did. It is called An Enchantment of Ravens, and I saw this, I believe, on Pinterest. It was recommended, and I don't know why it really spoke to me, other than I love crows. I love crows and I love ravens. They're just like such an underrated bird to me for whatever reason. And I don't know if that's what drew me in, or just, I don't know. It does have a nice description. The description, I don't know that it's anything crazy, but basically there is a girl, Isabel, and she has this kind of power, if you will, to paint people in a way that basically exudes their best traits. So if she was to paint you and you wanted yourself to seem, I don't know, charismatic and you really liked your eyes, she would paint you in a way that would show you that and make your eyes stand out as the best feature. So basically, she's known for being this insanely great human painter. But it is kind of an odd trait considering she is human and there are fae in this world, but the fae have like this very weird opinion of humans because only humans in this land have the ability to create craft, which is basically like art and innovation and anything like that. So things like cooking, painting, inventing, like science even falls under this, where it's called the craft. And basically the fairies love it, but they cannot participate. And so one of the princes of one of the realms, who is symbolized by a raven, his name is Rook, he actually comes to get his portrait painted. And the problem is she paints his portrait in a way where something she depicts, I think on the back it does even tell you, yeah, it does tell you how she paints him, but I'm not going to give that part away. She paints him basically in a way that makes him angry. And so he is out to get her. He is like, I'm going to kill you. Like, he's that upset because it shapes the way that his kingdom and his people perceive him and look at him, because she saw something in him that he doesn't share, but because of her little gift, she paints it. So of course he gets mad at her. But does he kill her? No. Why? Because what kind of book would that be? So anyways, highly recommend. This is their story of him basically coming and kidnapping her, and then their little story that ensues. It is a fairly short book. It is only, what is it? Not even 300 pages, 297. So it's a very short, quick, easy read. I read it in a day when I was sick in May, so highly recommend it. Even though I was sick, it was still entertaining and I loved it. And basically, couldn't recommend it enough. If you love the Cruel Prince series, by the way, highly recommend this. I don't know why, other than you have this human girl who's a little bit sassy, and you have this fae prince who is a little bit sassy, kind of dark. He definitely gives Cardan vibes, and she definitely gives Jude vibes. So if you enjoy Cruel Prince, you'll definitely like this one. It's Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, and I definitely give this a solid 4.5. Like, it's a little short, so we're not quite at the 5, but it was real good. 4.5 for sure. And this is a YA romantasy, so just in case anybody is curious, definitely not super spicy or anything like that. This is a YA book. So cute though. Next up, we have a book that I actually read on my Kindle, and let me tell you, I'm so excited to talk about it. Okay, it is called Half a Soul. And let me tell you, Half a Soul blew me away. I again had seen this a ton online, and I was so excited to read this book, but I had very, I don't know if I want to say mixed hope sounds weird. I'm thinking about like mixed impressions, but kind of like I had low expectations but really high hopes, if that makes any sense. Like, I didn't think it was going to be as good as it seemed like it was going to be from recommendations, because I didn't want to be disappointed, but I was thoroughly impressed. It is the first book in a Regency, it's called, I think, the Regency Fae series. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It's basically like a Regency era Fae combination, like Bridgerton meets the Fae world. You know what I mean? Like, it is such an interesting concept in and of itself, just the world. But that is not the best part. The best part is we have our main character, FMC, Theodora, and she is just a girl who basically, as a kid, there is this Fae man who, I can't exactly totally remember, but something happened with her mother, I believe, where he was promised her in payment. And basically he comes to collect, but her sister steps in to try to save her, and he only gets half of her soul. He was gonna take the full soul, and he's collecting human souls, so this is like his whole thing. But he only gets half of her soul. And so she basically never hears from him again. But she grows up her whole life with half of a soul. And the half that she has is like the not very emotional half, very, I don't want to say super logical, because she definitely still has like emotions in a way, but they're not happy. They're very kind of, almost jaded, like she's lacking this peace, right? She's never really known joy or happiness or excitement or like those happy emotions, right? She kind of lives in this meh world where everything is seen like glass half empty, and she just doesn't have the piece of her soul that would allow her to see things differently. And so she is going through life in this Regency era, trying to find a husband, as one does in this time, and basically nobody wants to marry her because she's missing that piece that comes across as very like socially awkward, right? She comes across as just missing that social piece. The social cues just aren't there, and she's just constantly making all of these societal faux pas, and so of course she has a hard time marrying. Enter Elias, who is the like court magician, and in society magic is not super it's not held in a great light. Because the Fae and the humans don't really interact much. But Elias has this magic about him that kind of totes the line of human and Fae. It kind of is like just enough for the humans to be interested, but not enough to be dangerous like the Fae. And so he basically meets her, and he has this kind of quirk about him, right? He's not like every other respected lord on the Ton. And so she and him kind of hit it off in this weird rivalry relationship where they don't really want to like each other, but they both recognize that they're not like everybody else. And basically, there's this kind of situation happening around the city where kids are dying. Not really, but there's like this weird plague illness that's taking over the children where it basically like puts them to sleep, and they can die if they don't obviously eat or drink anything. They're in this like coma state, and obviously no hospitals back then, at least not in that sense. So they're trying to figure out how to save the people, and there is just all of this stuff that goes with it. But basically it is just the most interesting fantasy Regency book ever. Like it's the perfect blend of everything. It has amazing side characters, which I loved. The side characters were just as good as the main characters. The romance was this perfect like rivals to lovers. There was fantasy elements, but nothing that took a lot of brain power, a lot of work, just the right amount to keep it interesting. I loved the world building. I could really picture everything going on. It was just so, so good. Probably one of the best books I read in May, if not the best book I read in May. Definitely like a 4.8. It was really, really good. And I'm really interested to read the rest of the books in this series because I enjoyed it so heavily, and I highly, highly recommend it. So that was kind of a heavy place to jump into another book, but I do have another book to talk about. And it's not quite as good as that one, but it is still really quite enjoyable. Okay, our next book is The Wolf and the Wildflower by Ella Fields. And I just want to take a moment to say the books I just mentioned were heavily YA fantasy. This book is adult, and I just want to make that clear before we jump in there. It was good. Okay, I just want to start out by saying that. I did not think this was a bad book. But I will say, before I go into details over the plot, it had a good plot. This book was great. Plot-wise, there was just a lot of spice. And don't get me wrong, it's an adult romantasy, so it has every right to be as spicy as it wants to be. There were just moments where I felt like that took over, and truthfully just was maybe a little bit distracting from the overall plot of the book, which was really good. So just kind of a little PSA about that, but it was good. I just want to clarify that. I would say I debated between a 4-star and a 3.8, and I'm almost leaning towards a 3.8 just for those pieces where I was really like, oh, I wish there's a little more plot. Plot to spice ratio was a little bit I don't want to say off because this is how the author intended it to be, but maybe just a little bit distracting from the plot at times. But it was a really good book. And I think that there's a time and place where those kinds of books can be really enjoyable. It just wasn't what I was anticipating. So maybe it caught me a little bit off guard as well. But definitely was still a good plot. There is this girl, Aster, who comes from basically this one kingdom, and she is on the run from her previous life. And I'm not going to give a lot of spoilers in this book because there's a lot of little twists and turns in it. And a lot of them can be kind of predictable, but also I think they're not worth spoiling. And so she comes from one realm, one kingdom, and she's on the run and basically runs into this warrior for another kingdom. I think he is a general, his name is Scythe. And basically he helps her, takes her in, and immediately, like, you want to talk about insta love, instantly this man is like, that's my woman. He is in love right away. Okay, so if you don't like insta love, this might not be for you. But if you like a good little insta love moment, which I think we all do at times, that is it. Scythe is it. And basically, there's all these kind of little secrets though, little pieces and aspects of her old life that she doesn't share. Because remember, she's on the run. And he doesn't really know a lot about her and doesn't really ask a lot at first until stuff starts coming out. And it's like, oh, there was a lot going on there you were running from, right? And he's in love. So there's this really interesting plot that does go on in this story where you have these two that connect so heavy right away. But then he has his own set of secrets, and basically, like, you're uncovering a lot about characters. This book is, I don't know how to describe it. It's like character motivated, but also plot motivated because there's like a lot of stuff happening at once. And a lot of ways, everything's all interconnected and woven. So it's definitely an interesting read. And for that, it definitely keeps you hooked because of all the little things going on. So I would say it's definitely worth the read. I would just make sure you're in the mood for a spicier book while you do it. And I just wouldn't want it to catch somebody off guard how much there is in there when I went into it thinking like, oh, cutesy little romantasy. And kind of, yeah, but also that. So just, yeah. I really enjoyed it though. I think it is a good book and definitely worth taking a look at. There is also another book that kind of goes with it. They're partner books with characters that pop up in this one. And I think it's called Something in the Swan. It's another couple. If you look this one up, it'll come up with it. But this is The Wolf and the Wildflower, both by Ella Fields. And I am interested to read that one. I'm also interested to read more of her books because now that I kind of know her writing style, it is definitely something that I could enjoy from time to time. So I liked it. Another book I wanted to mention that kind of doesn't fit with the fantasy topic at all is Angry God by LJ Shen. And you might be like, wow, I've never seen that cover of it. I rebound this book before I read it. This is my version that I created. But it is obviously the book inside. I was pretty proud of myself. This is my first ever book bind. So I was very excited about that. But I love this series. This is a great series. I've really come to realize I like LJ Shen's writing. The first book I ever read by her, this is the All Saints series. And the first one I ever read, I was very torn. The first like 5 chapters, her writing style was just not really like anything I've ever read. And I don't know if it was just that book in particular. It threw me for a minute, but then I realized I actually enjoy it. And that book is Pretty Reckless, by the way, is the first book in this series. And this is the third book. It's actually the first book I purchased before I realized it was a part of a series. And it is really good. This is like, I don't know, if you like kind of a rivals to lovers, new adult contemporary romance with kind of an academic setting. Basically, they're art students, but kind of rival art students at this academy in the UK. And basically, they're like vying for spots to partner with this like art gallery. Her dad is one of the like head guys of the university and like art galleries and all that. And he is an American who wants to basically be a part of it. And they're both vying for this spot in this program. And it's a little bit on the darker side, not crazy dark or anything like that, but definitely has that like rivals aspect and kind of like willing to play dirty to get what they want type of vibe. And I really enjoyed it. It is one of those books where when I read the first two books, I kept hearing their names mentioned, and every time they popped up, you could see that rivals kind of burn in there, and you're like, oh, I can't wait till I get to their book. And so I really, really enjoyed it. This is with Vaughn and Lenora are the characters' names, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I will say I enjoyed the first two in this series, and I really had no interest in reading them other than I wanted to get to this one and read it in order. And every book I've read in this series has been great. And so I'm really excited to read more of LJ Shen's series and works after I finish this one, but really, really good. A solid like 4.5 stars for me. Might even have a slightly higher rating because I read the other two first. I don't think it's absolutely necessary because they are interconnected standalones. So I've been reading a lot of those lately. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary to read the other two. If you wanted to just read this one, you could. But the tension and the like rivalry building between these two and the other two books is kind of top tier. And I honestly think it kicked this book up a notch for me. It might have just been 4 stars if I didn't already see the buildup over the other two. So I kind of would recommend reading it in order. Really good book. And then I read a shorty but a goodie, Mountains Made of Glass, which is by Scarlett St. Clair. And let me tell you, Scarlett St. Clair, she's a baddie. Like, I don't know how else to say it other than this woman writes good books. Anyways, there is a girl named Gisela, and basically her whole town has this well, and it dries up every so often. And as it starts to, they will basically like give these girls to the well. I think like basically she gets pushed in as like a sacrifice that's supposed to help the well get more water or something like that. It's not like a huge deal as to like the well doesn't play a huge piece into it, but she basically gets sacrificed, and in doing that, actually doesn't die. Surprise, surprise, the book's about her, right? And in the process kills a prince, like a fae prince. And he is actually like shifted into an animal at this time. So she doesn't really know she's killing a prince. But she accidentally kills him. And basically all the brothers come and they basically say like, you've got to be punished for what you did for this. And her whole village is kind of like, oh, she was supposed to die anyways. So she gets taken by one of the princes. And basically she's told, I'm going to keep you prisoner here, Beauty and the Beast elements. I'm going to keep you prisoner here as payment for my brother's life, basically. But there's more to it than that, right? Because Beauty and the Beast, there's the spell that he's under. This guy is also under a spell, and he basically tells her, I will let you go if you can guess my name. But you only have like a week to do this, right? Like you only have a set amount of time. And she's like, okay. So she's trying to guess his real name to get her out, so she thinks. And he's trying to get her to guess his name to break the spell. And so there's this whole thing to it. And I know, short book, how is all this happening? But it does. It's very, very fast paced. The pacing in this book is chef's kiss. One of my favorite things about well done short books is the pacing is usually phenomenal. And it's very hard to do in a fantasy because you have to build the world. But somehow Scarlett St. Clair did all of that in this and did it well. And so I'm very excited for the next one. I think it's called Apples Dipped in Gold. It's going to be releasing soon, first on ebook and then in physical copy in the fall, and I'm so excited to read it. It involves another one of the brothers, and I think each book is going to have, of course, different fairy tale and story elements, but it's going to go through all the different brothers. I'm pretty sure the first one and the second one go through different brothers, so that's just my guess. I don't know that for a fact, but it's a very, very good book. For as short as it is, I truthfully gave it like a 4.25 stars, like 4. I feel weird going higher than that just because of how short it is, but it's like a solid 4.5 almost. Like, it's really good, and I highly, highly recommend it. So yeah, with that being said, I have one last book to talk about, and it is a Ice Planet Barbarian book. So if you've read one, you've kind of read them all in a way, but also you haven't. This is the third book. I think it is the third full book. There are the little novellas after each one, but this is the third full book, and it was called The Barbarian Lover, and this is Kira. And you guys, I wrote down his name, and I cannot tell you how to pronounce it. Ehako? Whatever his name is. Her blue dude. And I feel like Ice Planet Barbarian books are so hard to like give much feedback on because they're pretty much the same idea, and they're just played out over and over again, and we eat them up, right? Like, that's the idea. Basically, Kira's the one that has the translator in her ear, and so it just is her relationship with that alien, and also the fact that the aliens that originally captured all the girls might be coming back in this one. So there was that little piece to it, but mainly this one was just about the relationship between those two and the possibility of the translator telling her that the other aliens might be coming back. So that was kind of the little twist on this one. Overall, without giving too much away, because it really is just part of the series, a cute book. Highly recommend that series just as like a fun palate cleanser. Every time I read one of those books, I read it in like a day, and by that I mean a few hours. Like, they're super fast, easy to get through, and just like if you need a book to just read for fun with zero expectations, that always does the trick for me. So that is May in a nutshell. Overall, a really good, successful month. I highly recommend pretty much every book I read. I was very, very impressed by the selections I had in May, considering I was sick like the entire month of May. These are all the physical copies, and then of course the couple that I have in ebook also. Highly recommend. They're definitely a solid collection, and I'm very excited for June to be posting more, and July and into the summer. So look for more videos. That happily ever after recommendations will definitely be my next video up, so that should be coming soon, and I will see you guys in the next one. Feel free to subscribe, like, and comment down below any thoughts you had of any of these books if you've read them, or other book suggestions if you have them. Have a great day.